Hello and welcome back to the Youngstown Click Be Connected podcast. I am so excited to be with you guys again for 2025, and we are getting started with a bang here. We have some out-of-town guests, but guys, you're not going to want to go anywhere because what they have to share with Youngstown Click is something that affects every single person. Have you guys ever found anybody who has not been affected by what you guys have to share?
No.
No. See? No. Okay, so don't go anywhere. All right, so before we actually launch off and I introduce you to our guests, I want to thank our sponsors, the Gallagher and the Varsity Club of Youngstown Downtown, the newest spot to eat in downtown Youngstown. It is amazing. It's a perfect place to go with friends and watch the game. And guys, they're just getting started. There's going to be a patio added. It's a super great and fun atmosphere. I was just down there this afternoon, and the food is phenomenal. And then the Gallagher building is an over 100-year-old building, and they have long-term leases in there and some short-term leases. So make sure you check that out if you're looking for a great downtown Youngstown place to stay. And then the Cat in Columbiana. This is a cultural arts theater, and it's over 100 years as well, old as well. As you know, see, we love our history around here. We hate getting rid of old buildings, and we always like to repurpose. But now it's an epicenter for culture and arts, and they do way more than just theater. They do events and concerts and all kinds of community events. So make sure you check it out, and we just want to thank them for believing in Youngstown Click. Let's get started right away. Awesome. So guys, my guests today are Neil and Diane Arnold, who are marriage therapists, counselors. How would you introduce yourselves?
Well, I would say that I am a marriage. I am a marriage counselor. Neil is actually a banker.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey.
And he is actually the CEO of a bank that is not located in Ohio. It's headquartered actually in Dallas.
Okay. And so what you guys don't know is we didn't actually come for relationship advice. We're going to ask about banking. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
finances.
Take it away.
I'm kidding. No, we're actually, that also affects everyone. Man,
exactly.
you guys just got it covered.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, you guys travel around and help people with their relationships, married people and singles. Give us a little rundown, and then I want to get right into your story and why you got into this. But you guys have something, they have something called the Family Collective, and is that thefamilycollective.com?
.co.
Okay.
We had our millennials name it, so we're .co.
You
got to work hard to find us.
I love it. Okay, thefamilycollective.co.
Yeah.
And guys, I can't wait to get into a little bit about their story and ask them some questions that I don't even know the answers to. I've done a little bit of research on you guys. They are in town because they're doing a three-day seminar starting Friday night and then going all day Saturday and Sunday morning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it's absolutely free here in Canfield. So I will put the flyer on there for you guys. So they want you to register. If you can, register. They're providing lunch on Saturday. So let's get into your story. Okay. So how did you guys get into this whole...
The Family Collective.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good story. So we met with our adult children. We were actually in Redding, California.
Oh, okay.
We had rented a condo together. And Neil, being the long-term thinker, looked at our young children and said, what do you want our legacy to be?
Oh, wow.
Which I think
That's
is an
a deep
amazing
question.
question to ask. Yes, I think it's an amazing question to ask families. But being the deep people we are, we all just looked at him like, what? What are you talking about? And so then I thought, okay, the kids are going to say that they want to go into business with dad, or they wanted to go into a venture or something like that. And what we were really, I was surprised at is that because of our testimony, they all looked at us and said, we want to do something with family.
Wow. I just got goosebumps. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we want to help other people with their relationships, what it looks like, to be restored, to be into a place of at least more healthy.
Right.
And so that kind of sent us on a road of, well, what does that look like?
Okay.
I mean, we knew, of course I know that I was a marriage counselor and had written, some material on relationships. but it ended up, and at some point, our children are involved, but everybody's having babies right now. We have 5 grandchildren from 3 different boys right now, so it's pretty amazing. But they're doing their best to do posts and things for us. But hopefully someday they'll be traveling with us.
Yeah. Okay. So already it's a family. It really is a family project to other families.
Yes.
I love that. It just changes how it looks.
And I think if we're honest, family is one of those things that we all have one.
Yes.
I think.
Right.
But the reality is, a lot of times, family is the source of our identity and our destiny, but a lot of times it's also a source of great pain.
Wow.
It's not one or the other, it's both.
Yeah.
And so we have to embrace that. And what I love about the Bible is it embraces that even the heroes of the faith had some imperfect families.
Yeah, that's true.
And we might not have, if I was writing the Bible, I would have probably kept those parts out.
Right. Which most of the church, that's kind of like the thing. Like people have a hard time admitting any kind of weakness or kind of sensitivity, vulnerability, period. That's just as humans. So yeah, that's very interesting. So you guys have come into this personally because of some great pain.
Yes.
Right? So can you talk to us about that?
Yes. And we do talk about it also, if you're going to, a lot of people will hear this story and say, oh, I want more details. And we do have a couple of places, we've written a book about restoration on, how we healed our own journey.
Wow.
But then we've recently come out with a book on healing for a lot of the mental health issues that are going on.
Wow.
We have over 70% of young adults say they're struggling with either anxiety or depression. That's like a ridiculous number.
It is.
And over that number, 75% say they don't know their purpose or why they're even here.
Wow.
So we deal with some more of the story.
I love that in some of your books.
In
and
some
writing.
of the books, yeah.
And this is good because I just want to set the foundation that a lot of times, people who write books and write courses and speak sometimes haven't really been through it. They're writing it, they've studied it, they've been behind the computer, and they're good writers, but they haven't lived it, and it hasn't worked. This is something that you guys have lived. Here you are. How long have you been married?
43 years this year.
Yes.
Oh, congratulations. That's no small feat.
You notice I didn't let him answer? I was like, no, I don't know what number you're going to throw out.
I wasn't sure if you counted all the years.
Right.
There were some rough ones.
There were some
I probably didn't get credit for a couple of those.
So can we start with how you guys met?
Yeah, we met in college.
Yeah, I'll tackle that one now.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we both went to the University of North Dakota, which she kept trying to set me up with one of her friends.
Oh, okay.
And I kept trying to convince her that I'd rather go out with her, to which she seemed a little taken aback. But I was able to wear her down. And the real hook was I invited her to a Josh McDowell event at the main theater when he was doing his campus events. And And
so he came to your campus.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And honestly, we got married 6 days after I graduated from college.
Yeah, we dated for
a
about
couple
a year
years.
and a half,
Yeah.
Now, were either of you guys from North Dakota, or did you guys both transplant to North Dakota for college?
We were both from
We're
there.
both from North Dakota.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So you met.
We're already rare, right there.
Right, you are right. North Dakota. Don't you
like
supposed to
AB
have an
blood.
accent? Some sort of accent.
Yeah,
That's right.
you betcha.
You betcha. Oh man. Okay. So, so you graduated college, and you were still in college when he graduated.
No,
Sorry,
I'm
I'll
actually
little
like
details.
8 months older than him. So he graduated. I graduated.
Before him. Okay, got it. Okay, so then you guys get married.
Yep.
All right, so go ahead.
And he's got, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
He's got to say, I'm She's a cougar. She married a young man. He says that every time. She's a cougar. Honestly, he was a year ahead in school, in the finance classes I was in, and I thought he was my age, but whatever.
Okay,
It's
so
like, we start counting at the next birthday. I'm like, what? You're younger than me?
Oh, that is hilarious.
I know.
All right, so at this point in time, sometimes we see two young people fall in love, especially right out of college. They know what they want to do, and in that moment, it feels like it'll naturally be happily ever
Oh my gosh, you
after
gotta go into it.
because they're young, they got the life ahead of them, and they feel like, hey, we're going to do this different. We're going to be the ones to do it right. So tell us about.
So
Yeah. I always love to say that we all get married thinking for the next 40 years we're going to have romance, flowers, candles, lots of sex.
Yeah. Hey, sounds like people would be jumping into that boat
Exactly.
right away.
But everybody does. They get started. They're like, this is what it's going to look like. you
Right,
know?
right.
Exactly.
And why wouldn't you think that? I mean, that's
Yeah.
what, okay.
Right.
So,
and the reality is life happens. And
Okay.
one of the things, Diane and I both were doers.
Okay.
We were very busy. We had 3 boys. She was taking them to events, working, and I was coaching them and busy with a job. And what we tell people is we ended up being business partners more than really married because we gave each other leftovers. We were so busy
We were
with
very
everything else.
active in our church. We were holding, Bible studies at our house. We were,
Yeah.
we were everybody's go-to person, because we would get
Okay.
it done.
yeah, right.
We would but we didn't really, like Neil said, I think we were just so tired at the end of the day. We just didn't give each other
Your best.
Yeah.
or much at
Okay.
all. We were like, we'll get to that someday.
Got it.
Someday.
Yeah.
When the kids get done with this, when this happens.
Okay.
And the other part is, and I think this is often what we find with couples, we didn't know how to resolve conflict.
Oh.
And so every time we'd run into conflict, we'd sort of have to wall up that room because we didn't know how to resolve it. And we kept having to wall up rooms, so pretty soon we're living in the hallway.
Ooh, I'm sure
Because-
there's people listening that sounds very familiar
And
where they're at. Yeah.
And my heart breaks over that because it's easy to look back and say, if we'd only known how to navigate conflict
Wow.
better, we would have stayed better connected. That's not an excuse, but it's a skill that nobody teaches you.
Right.
So I think, if as we look back on it, having skills to navigate conflict.
Yeah.
And there are lots of complexities because it's not just 3 steps. It's knowing different personality and attachment pieces that Diane's done a great deal of work on.
Wow.
But the reality is conflict creates distance. And I respected my wife. I knew how talented she was. She's obviously beautiful, but I didn't know how to connect with her.
Wow.
And the last thing in the world for me was I didn't want to do it wrong.
Oh, right.
And
Wow.
it was like we ended up creating distance with time
Yeah.
and not knowing how to resolve conflict. And, to end up, so I'll cut to the chase.
Yeah.
I ended up in an affair at work.
How far into your marriage were you at this point?
25 years,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I will say this, I never dreamt I'd end up there.
Right.
And it was, I went through some of the deepest, largest pain, the pain I caused my wife. The fact that she hung in there is a miracle in and of itself.
For
that
sure.
she chose to walk it out with me. And I tell people it's not only embarrassing, it can also enslave you to stay in a place of brokenness that, Diane and I will probably, I think people have asked us, I was ready to turn the page, but it probably took us 3 years to walk out.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
For sure. People often ask, how long does it take to heal?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And, you're grieving, you're dealing with shame, you're dealing with rejection, you're dealing
Betrayal. Yeah.
betrayal, but on both parts.
Okay.
Because anytime, and I say this as a clinician, anytime anyone takes that step of walking away from their relationship, especially at that level, it's been years that there's been problems.
Okay.
In that relationship. It's not like something someone goes, oh, I think this is what I'll do today.
Right.
There's, been a minimum of 2 years of probably disconnect.
Got it.
You
Okay,
know.
that's what I was going to ask you. At what point in this busy life of yours, having kids, did you start feeling, either of you start feeling that disconnect, start feeling that discomfort in your marriage?
Neil was pretty high up in his position. So unfortunately, he was gone a lot of hours.
Okay.
And then when he was home, he was pouring it into the kids. He was coaching sports or going to, their events or, spending time with them,
Right. Okay.
before they went to bed or did whatever they, whatever was happening,
Right.
in their day. So by nature, if you don't spend time in any relationship,
Yeah. You see it with celebrities all the
it
time.
doesn't go well,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so it did not go well. And when this whole thing went down, and I know people look at me all the time and go, "Oh, you didn't act very devastated." Well, it's been 20-some years.
Yeah.
We've
Right.
had a little time to heal. And so please
Right.
don't
Right,
misunderstand me.
Yeah, you're right.
It was
That
a
would be
very
It's not like going to Disney.
yeah, it was a very hurtful event. And in
Right.
fact, we made the front page of the Wall Street Journal. I mean,
What?
he was in a high up position. So, on top of that, it was very public.
Man.
So we healed, with everyone's eyes watching us,
Oh, my
on top of that.
Can I pause for a second as far as like moving forward, because there's just so much complexity. But Neil, when you were in that place, like, so here you're a believer, you love your family, you're obviously taking time to be a good dad, you just disconnected, right? So in that place, did you justify it for a bit in your mind, or did you feel guilty the entire time, or like, what was your frame of mind during that?
Yeah.
If you don't mind me digging a little bit.
Yeah,
Well, not good.
I do mind. No, but I'll still do it. No, it's a great question, because the reality is you justify it.
Okay.
It's an awful thing to do. I don't
Yeah.
want in any way glorify. The reality is you justify it, that I've done this or I've done that or I've not been, valued.
Treated right,
whatever.
or-
Yeah.
You justify everything. In fact, I have learned, and I've tried to tell people, when you lose your faith,
Yeah.
the steps away always seem small. I can take a little step. And then when you've fallen, the devil will help you understand the steps back are huge.
Oh, right.
So don't try.
Oh, man.
Okay.
And that goes for anybody.
It goes for anyone.
But then you're a public figure too. Oh, my goodness.
But I say that to say, in all the situations, I'm going, how did I get here? I'm in despair. The reality is, some of the most important listening I ever got from God in it was during that time when I'm like in the pit of hell, and he's saying to me, I haven't left you or forsaken you.
Wow.
But he did tell me, and I tell this to every husband. He said, Neil, I trusted one person on earth to help Diane find her destiny, and it was you.
Oh.
You know,
Wow.
as a spouse, you know, we often get married going, what are they going to do for me? And he literally said, I trusted one person. And
This is what covenant looks like.
and
Wow.
and I knew the depth of my failure, but I didn't know that. And I can remember at one point he said to me, you've tried to do this marriage thing on your own. Are you going to invite me in?
Wow.
You know?
And you had been walking with God
Oh, yeah.
from, you
But
know.
I didn't know marriage was part of the deal. I
Right.
thought church,
Right.
you know, I tell people I had a really tidy life. There was family, there was church, and there was work. And they didn't touch.
Got it. Right. Which they say a lot of guys do that. It's like waffles. You know, they have they have like different containers of their life.
Yes.
And to try to cross over, whereas women, everything's connected.
Yeah.
You know, you could be at church and thinking about your kids and at, you know, dinner and all this stuff, but guys have the very, you know,
Yeah, you
kind
don't
of
need
like
to gang
segmented.
up on me because Diane explains this to me too.
Listen, this type of thing fascinates me, and trust me, we're going to dig into Diane's brain a little bit too when it comes to her knowledge. Okay, so then this thing like busts open.
It blows up.
It blows up. Oh my goodness! And Diane, how did you find out?
Well, unfortunately, one of my sons did. They got on the internet and found tickets to somewhere, and they're like, hey, who's this? And I'm like, I don't know, you know. And so, but up to, Neil had already actually moved out at that point.
Okay.
He had said that he needed some time apart.
Okay.
You know, and I can tell women tend to know when something's off. I knew something was off. I didn't know what was off.
Right.
Because I knew Neil's faith, so I wouldn't have in a million years guessed this is what was off.
Right.
You know, I knew he wasn't into something good or he wouldn't have moved out.
Right.
He told, you know, but we found this out, and I addressed it with Neil. I can say at some point, you know, once he admitted what was going on, then I went to the Lord and said, you know, now what do you want me to do?
Wow.
You know, here we are. What do you want me to do?
What a
And-
response! Most people would have got it.
Well, you got. I mean,
She
as I'm
left
saying,
out a few words, I'm sure.
there were a few words.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. For those of you who are thinking this was all civil, this was not all civil. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes. But, you know, he said, I need you to stay in this marriage. And I'm like, what? Say what? You know, and so, you know, after God and I thought about that
Of course.
for a little bit, you know, because the thing was so big.
Right, and
You
I'm
know,
sure you had other voices around you saying, "Oh, you got to
Get
cut this off.
out.
You got to get. You don't deserve."
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Get out, get out, get out. You know, and so I really didn't tell Neil that because, I mean, he was just in such a bad place. But I didn't make immediate moves,
Okay.
you know, to get divorced. And I can remember, actually, I want to tell this story because of those of you that have friends out there, I want you to hear this because it's so important. It is. One point I went to church like on a Sunday or a Wednesday night. It seemed like I was always in church. And I went to church and there was a gentleman that was a friend of Neil's, you know, from church. And he said, you know, what can we do? How can we help you? You know,
Wow.
you know, what can the church do for you? And, you know, in their mind, I think they thought, bring meals over, take the kids somewhere,
Right.
you know, something like that. And I was feeling so, you know, confused. I was like, you know, we're good, right? And then I can remember driving forward, slamming on the brakes, backing up, rolling down the window, and looking at the sky and saying, do you not understand what's happening? no, I know what's going on with Neil. I was like, do you not understand that his spiritual life is at risk?
Wow.
Bigger than our marriage. He's in a really bad place. And he goes, yeah, I suppose. And I said, well, then what do you think you should do? And God bless this man. He organized a men's group to meet once a week or twice a week at 6 a.m. And they just prayed for Neil's salvation and our marriage.
What?
Yeah, I'm not joking. But I say that to the point of, I know how big of a stronghold this is.
Okay.
Spiritually.
Yeah, right.
That it,
And what a road.
it took, to be, blunt on the other end of this whole thing, there was another person that thought, they had met the love of their life. And, she was pulling, him quite seriously. It was that kind of a spiritual war.
Wow.
And this gentleman, I really think that there was a breaking when they really went after heaven like that.
Wow.
So I think that's important for us to know as a church, that it's not necessary like, oh, I'll pray for you.
Right.
It's like, it's sometimes you need to storm heaven on these things, because this matters not just to our marriage, but statistically to our children and to our grandchildren. There was a legacy, is a legacy in our family of both of our parents are married 66, 70 years, and God knew he didn't want that legacy to stop with us, because once brokenness does happen in the family, unfortunately, it can become the legacy of the family.
A pattern, yes.
It can become a pattern. And, is that spiritual, or, is that just, what
becomes
families,
normal?
Yeah, what becomes the families are used to seeing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I knew that in that moment, God just laid in my heart, they need to pray.
Wow.
And one of the things we try to tell at our conferences, that our church is supposed to be a body of Christ. We're supposed to be family.
Yeah.
And so often we challenge people, become the first responders for family,
Wow.
for marriages, because we all know one's in trouble.
Yeah.
And usually we go to the other side of the street.
Yeah.
Or we talk about it rather than run to the crisis and say, let me be there. Let's help fight. We're not letting another family, get devoured, because that's what it is.
And it's such a juxtaposition, because the world says, mind your own business.
Right.
Yes.
Pat somebody on the back. Don't get too involved. They need their space. Right. They need their space. Don't, you're going to seem like a nosy Nelly if you,
Right.
But to just say, hey, we're going to back you up. We don't need to know all the details, but we're going to have your back, and we're not going anywhere. That's powerful, because in this world, there's not a lot of people who will just have your back unselfishly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it is and so I'm a plug in for what's happening at Touch Heaven,
Right.
If that's you, and, show up here.
Yeah.
This church wants to help you. We want to help you with some skills, for that, because we don't want you to stay broken.
So there is, and I want to get back to your story. We'll weave in and out. Okay, but I can tell you're excited. Okay, but you mentioned about the patterns of brokenness, and I'll use myself as an example. My grandma and my grandpa were divorced. My mom and my dad were divorced. Great people on both ends.
Always.
Goes without saying, right? But there's a pattern there, as well as I know so many people. I mean, I'm around people and they're like, oh, my life got so much better after divorce. I'll never get married again. Don't get married.
Yeah.
You hear all this advice out there. But you mentioned that there are patterns that we see. But obviously what you guys do, have you seen a lot of people be able to heal from those patterns through having the right knowledge, through having healing?
Yes.
So there is hope for broken families.
Yes, 100%. I mean, covenant is meant to be forever, right?
Yeah.
And I say that not, if you are in a physical, sexual abuse situation, please don't stay. step out, get help, and figure that out. I'm not saying stay in there and get hurt, but I am saying, if we're just struggling communicating, if we're struggling, and this is a common one where we can't emotionally connect, so now, now we're not going to have sex anymore.
Right.
If it's skills based, or spiritual based, that we can learn some skills. One of the things that I talk with couples about when I'm doing training is just to picture this in your mind. When a couple would get married in New Testament times, and we all know how that was done with the trumpets. No?
No.
No? Okay. So they would get engaged, right?
Okay.
The bride would go away to get ready.
Okay.
The groom or to-be would go build a room on his parents' house.
Okay.
Right? And then when they were ready, when he was ready, they would sound a trumpet, and she should be ready, just like in the Bride of Christ, to trumpet, right? So she should be ready, and then the wedding party would come, and they would have this wedding, right?
Okay.
But take it from there, they went to live with their in-laws. Think about
Right.
this.
Oh, my
This
goodness.
is your honeymoon, people. You're a room with your in-laws, right? And this could be a while, right? And I first was just mortified by the thought about it. And then I thought, think what they learned. They learned how to be parents. They learned how to be a couple. They learned about, communication. I mean, there was always someone to say,
Yeah.
Neil and I aren't getting along. Well, maybe you should try this. And then when it came to sex, let's think about it.
Right.
Everybody in the house knew when someone was having sex. We were talking clay walls.
Right.
So
man.
it became not an uncommon thing,
Wow. That's interesting.
right? It became
Yeah.
a normal part of
Right,
life.
which a lot of people don't want to talk about because in polite society, I heard one lady, she gave a speech. It was so funny. She said, "How many of you guys in a relationship talk about sex regularly with your partner?"
Right.
And some people raise their hand. So then she said, "How many of you have ever talked about sex with your partner?" Like only a couple more hands went up. And she said, "That's so funny because I guarantee you every single one of you are sitting here because two people had sex."
Or you're thinking about it right now, especially if you're a guy.
If it's right. If it's affected all of us,
Yes.
that we're here because of it, why are we not talking about it?
Well,
Now,
we're
again-
going to.
Okay. Oh, okay. So,
We're going to talk
face
about
to
it.
face.
We're going to talk about it.
Okay. Okay. So back to. I know
Yeah.
we're kind of. If you guys have something else to say, stop me. But
No.
So back. Okay. So very public. You're in the front of the Wall Street Journal. That's a story. I got to read that book. And then, wait. And then what happened? How did you guys end up back together?
So I want to say that, that is the 2 years that he talked about where the Lord really had us walk through it. He ended up taking a break from work, and
Okay.
good or bad, we were with each other 24/7. I think at this level, I don't think I
It
would
was
have.
both, is what she meant.
Yeah, good or bad. I don't know if I could have trusted the healing
If not,
if he would have been going away for 14 hours a day like that
Okay.
again. So it ended up being, a really good thing for
so
us.
once the news broke, how long after that did he quit his job and move back in?
Oh, gee, there was still time. There was still time because there was still this, like I said, this pull on
Yeah.
his life.
Right.
I would say that it was months.
So there
And
was a lot of patience and a
and-
lot of not knowing, uncertainty.
And a lot of anger.
Oh,
That would
wow.
be me.
Yes.
Yes, a lot of anger I had to deal with. At one point, this person tried to call us, and I took his phone on the edge of a piece of furniture. And it was in tiny little pieces by the time I was done. No one ever used that phone again. And we said, like I said, people are out there going,
man.
"Oh my gosh!"
Right.
But the reality is, this is 20-some years ago. We were working on 25 years ago,
And
but,
it was real life.
and it was real,
Yes.
and that was real
Right.
life. It's like I was done with it. I think there was
We moved out of the city.
We ended up
so-
having to move out of that city because, again, he was a very public figure.
What made you, Neil, choose? Okay, so I'm putting this into some of the situations that we know, right?
Right.
There are many men who choose to walk away and to choose, the unknown or a new relationship. Do you remember? Obviously, we knew what was happening behind the scenes with the prayer and what God told you, but in your heart, how hard was that, or what was that final thing? Was it just God pulling you back to your family, or was it you had to face like, I love my wife? Like, what did that look like? I mean, it's hard if you could remember going back, and I know that's very vulnerable, but
No,
it happens so often that.
Yeah, you have a lot of different thoughts going on. But the thing I would say is you have history.
Yeah.
Good, bad, all the pieces, and to just erase history wasn't something that I didn't see that as an easy thing. And it sounds almost bizarre to say it this way, but there was no one I respected more than my wife,
Wow.
even at that time. We didn't like each other very well,
Yeah.
but I knew what a great mother she was. I knew how hard she persevered after things.
Wow.
She went after God. I couldn't point to something and say she's not, fill in the blank.
Right.
It was that we didn't have something that,
Wow.
and the harder part is I didn't know what it was. Now looking back, there are lots of pieces. I just knew it wasn't right.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that she hung in there gave me the courage to say, because I didn't know that she would take me back.
Wow.
And that also played on me in this process.
That you could lose her.
Yeah. And so, it, real life is painful. And there was a long time in my career I thought I had the world by the tail.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I came to face with how wicked
Oh, interesting.
the inner man can be. And it scared me. And to be honest, it scared me
Yeah.
in all its respects. And it's something I've made daily, a weekly part of, apart from God. All of us can get to some very bad places.
Yeah.
And I walk in that fear today.
Wow.
And it's okay.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay. So what would you say? We're going to go forward and then come back. But what would you say while we're in this moment to anybody watching, guy or woman, who is in that space right now? They're right in that place.
It's not pain-free. And anybody who tells you that it is,
So the grass is greener.
yeah, there's no such thing.
Because you're
don't-
going into that grass and you're going to bring all your problems with you. They're the same problems are going to go into that new relationship unless
Yeah.
you've dealt with them.
Right.
Wow.
No. And, I think the big conundrum in marriage is it's obvious visually that husband and wives are different.
Right?
It becomes obvious to us that emotionally we're quite different,
Yeah.
but we don't see differences as strength. We usually see it as tension. If only she'd think like me, our marriage would be in a good spot. And I
yes.
spent a lot of years trying to convince her that if she thought like me, this whole thing would be a lot better.
Right.
And thankfully, she didn't listen.
So good. I see the opposite as well, where women are like, "What is he thinking? It's so
Oh, yeah.
Like you're right. We view it as like as a you're wrong. Can't you just? What's wrong with you?
If you would just change.
Right.
Well, God obviously formed us and he formed us differently.
Yeah.
It's been purposeful. And he also said it's not right that you should be alone. What he didn't tell us is clearly is it's going to be really hard.
Covenant's not easy. Right?
Oh man. Right. It's probably a good thing. Really.
Well, I shouldn't say not easy, but not pain-free. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to be a learning process.
Definitely.
You know, I always tell people, you know, you put a marriage, which is the example of our covenant with God, you know, in a glass box and see how that works out. You know, it's like under a microscope. This is going to be a model for what this,
Right.
you know, should look like.
Right.
I always add to people, the reason marriage is so difficult is because God wants us bigger than ourselves. And none of us choose that willingly.
All right.
Interesting.
You know, he's
Yeah.
trying to get us aware of there's more to life than just your thoughts,
Right.
your plans, your experience.
Wow.
And he sends it to us in a pretty box called your spouse. And you're dumb enough to put your hand in there.
So I have to say, and I'm not, you know, I don't share this often, but I have been like so averse to commitment. That freaks me out, right?
I get
Scares.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
right? So for people who actually do take that plunge, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, you know, we're committed to making this work, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the benefits of sticking with it? Because there are times that, you know, especially when you see other people and it seems like they're happy and the kids seem to be adjusting well with this, you know, 2-home thing and all this stuff. It sometimes can seem contagious.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
It is.
Divorce? Yeah. Wow.
It is actually.
Yeah.
Wow. See? Okay. All right. Now we're very close to letting you just go. Okay. So
Yeah, if you're actually, I would say this, if you're out there, if you're that person we're talking to,
Yeah.
that you're struggling, do not hang out with someone who's also struggling,
okay.
because that will absolutely send you thinking that's the direction to go.
Wow.
You know,
It becomes the norm. It
it becomes,
wow.
yep, it
Right.
becomes, yep. You
Yeah.
know, what is the big benefit of being in a relationship?
Yeah. What's the big benefit? Why get married? Like, why
Because
should
that's
people
actually
get
what-
married instead of living together?
Yeah, it's
and-
100% what people
Yeah.
are struggling with right now. They've watched their grandparents fail, their
Mm-hmm.
parents fail, and they're like, are you kidding me? It'd be easier just to have a relationship and not, you
Right.
know.
And of course, we know that God blesses marriage and He has created marriage. So we know that. But has psychology or any kind of studies backed that up with some hands-on? Hey,
Yes.
it's a struggle, and it may be with pain at times. But here's the benefits.
Yes.
Okay, what are those?
We're made for community. We're made to be in relationship. We are absolutely not made to be in isolation. And if you come to this, I'm going to explain to you what happens to an isolated brain.
Oh,
Because that actually will change your brain, and it will change how you relate to other people, and it will change how you see the world.
okay.
And we have an epidemic. I mean, and we all know what an epidemic is now, right? We have an epidemic of isolation in our culture because of the phones and because of,
COVID compounded.
well, COVID compounded it, yeah, but not wanting to be fear
Yeah.
of being in a relationship. But
Fear
if-
of abandonment, rejection,
Yeah.
you know,
Failure. Yeah.
failure.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean,
but you're not
literally-
walking toward the thing that can actually heal that.
Right, and I would have never. I would have. Oh my! I would have never said. I would have never said those things at the time. I would have said, "I'm just independent."
Sure,
Right?
sure, sure.
Plus,
Because
sure, yeah.
because as independent, if I get hurt, it's my own silly fault, right? And so, and those are things that, you know, like I've thought about. And so God has just brought me on this journey. And so it's so funny. You look back and you're like, oh man, I was really messed up back then. And you don't see it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah. So, and I know, and I recognize it in young people, but times 4 and times 10, that they're like, okay, I can control my life. And I'm not going to I'm not going to do that, because that reduces pain. My mom was always dating people. Like, you know what I'm saying? You see all this trauma and people are like trying to say, okay, I'm going to not follow that path. And for there to be people who say, hey, we've done it. We've been through it. Let us help show you the way. Let us shine some light on your path. That's not very common in this area.
Well, psychology, if you're asking for, what the studies are saying that, like I said, our brains are changing.
Yeah.
Our brains are changing with not having the bonding, not having the commitment, not having the resilience actually to say, it's not all about me. What does the world say? It's all about me.
Yeah, you're right.
It isn't all about me. It's not all about him either. It's about him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when I don't know how to do that, it is literally two things. One, I need to be humble enough and willing to lay down enough of myself to try.
Yeah.
Two, my brain might not be really open to that right now.
Wow.
I might have a little more isolated brain.
Right.
And can you heal that? Absolutely, but you have to be in a relationship.
Oh man. So that was my next question. So everything is healable.
Everything.
Everything is healable. That's beautiful.
The whole message of the gospel is restoration.
Yeah.
God built restoration into creation.
Wow.
He didn't anticipate we would be foolproof.
Yeah.
He knew that we were going to fail. He knew that we were going to struggle. He built in Jesus as an answer of restoration from the beginning.
Wow.
And the whole picture is, how does restoration take place? Because we all need it.
Yeah.
Even self-righteous people need restoration.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And sometimes, go ahead.
I was going to say, to land the plane on...
Yes. Okay. Now,
On the family
just go.
collective.
You
Yeah.
go. Just let them have it for the next couple minutes, and then
No,
we'll
I just
wrap it up.
wanted to. Yeah, I was going to say, but what happened out of this? For the family collective, we've got this story. We're sitting with our kids. They say they want. They say they want to use that. And the Lord said to me one day, "Now I need you to think about what happened." He said, what the enemy intended for evil, I will use for good.
Wow.
So I've took this damaged relationship, and I used it for a handful of people, when you did counseling. Well, even back up further than that. I've got, the business degree, and when I decide that the end of the kids that are finishing high school, I'm like, I'm going to go back to school.
Yeah.
And I just total switch.
Okay.
We'd gone through this in our marriage, and I'm like, and I'm going to go help other people, but I'm going to actually have some science behind it. I want to know, what it is I'm walking into, right?
Yeah.
And so I go back, I get, the graduate degrees in, counseling, professional counseling. It's something totally different, than my background. And he said, let me show you what happened. This bad thing happened. You went back to school. You helped a handful of people, in your counseling session. Then you wrote this book, because what was out there at the moment, and I don't want anyone to take this wrong, but I'm out there trying to do help with my couples, and I couldn't find decent material. It was either really covenant Bible-based, which is awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Or it was over here all science-based, and I couldn't find any, where these good therapy models can be used with a Christian background. Wow. And I kept saying, this is all good, psychology under the covering of God. He made it, for crying out loud. It's good under its covering, right? And so what ended up happening is something I didn't ever expect, is we wrote this marriage material.
Wow.
Because we were like, we couldn't find that to help even the couples that were being sent to us.
Wow.
Because I knew that some of these, like I said, therapy models were like 80% effective. Okay, I didn't want the world to just have those. I want Christians to have those. They work.
Right.
That's what we're after, right? How do you heal this? One of those that we're going to talk about Friday night is, how do you heal that emotional connection, right?
Wow.
So anyway, we end up writing that. So we help, I would say, I don't know, thousands more, that get their hands, on the material.
So for those of you who are just listening to the podcast or those watching, the book she's referring to is called Face to Face, Growing Connection and Cultivating Intimacy by Diane and Neil Arnold. So can they buy that on the website?
They can buy that.
Website?
You can buy it on Amazon. We on our website, we actually take you through the chapters through a video on
Yeah, you
each
can buy the
chapter.
course.
And,
Oh, nice.
and
Okay.
Our goal is to provide resource that we think is relevant,
Yes.
that goes deep enough. I would just say that Diane doesn't say it. Typical marriage counseling is 30% effective, with those gains being lost over 2 years.
Really?
Because it's all behavioral. I keep saying, you change this and you change this, and then that lasts until you don't want to anymore. And then, or you get in a fight, or whatever, and you don't want to do it. So, but what psychology has figured out is some of these models, they go deeper. They go underneath that.
That's good.
Why I did it.
It's very powerful, and
That's
the
good.
success rate is nearly 80%.
Come on.
With those gains being kept, because you learn how to reach for each other at your point of need.
Changing your habits, not just your behavior.
Understanding myself.
Or
Why am I doing that?
Okay.
Why am I getting triggered? Why am I getting triggered when you raise your eyebrows
Okay.
like that? Why am I getting triggered when you make that comment?
Right.
There is,
Oh my gosh,
That's
that has nothing to do with
interesting.
you. It's what my mom did,
Oh my goodness. And so what? So what?
so
Wow.
there's an emotional connection, and there's a diagram in here.
Okay.
On what page is that? 17. That when she takes couples through this process to show them why they're having the same fight over and over, and where they're causing each other real deep pain.
Yeah.
It's like a mic drop. It's like couples, and when we go back years later, they go, remember when you guys went through that? It changed the course of our marriage.
That's amazing. So would you consider this a good book for newlyweds?
So we
would consider the premarital model of that
Okay.
really good for newlyweds, which
So we
is
wrote
also on Amazon.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So we did both, but it is for both. And
Okay.
the reality is, do the work.
Yeah.
What I find is courage. So marriage is the hardest and the most important job we have,
Wow.
but we often don't have any training. We just say, good luck. And please
You'll do fine.
don't bleed on our carpet. How you doing? Fine, good.
Right. Yeah. Keep at it.
And so I tell people that there's a whole mystery in the Bible about marriage. And it's not just about our marriage here on earth.
Yeah.
It's about our marriage with Christ. And he refers to us as the bride of Christ.
Wow.
And he's wanting us to chase after the mystery. And it's no different with our spouse. God created someone uniquely to shadow us.
Yeah.
And Diane says it way better than I do, but what they have for weakness, the other person fills in. How do you say that? The Jerry
That's good.
Maguire?
Yeah,
No.
you complete me. Yeah.
Oh, you go right.
I knew what you were after.
I love it.
But the reality is, it's not just that we aren't supposed to be alone. It's that God created a way for your weakness to be overshadowed with someone else who can pull us
Right.
to a greater strength.
Which it totally takes humility to admit that we would need somebody else to pull us to be the best that we could be, and vice versa. Okay, so
I would venture to say with that,
yeah,
that yes, in this book we're dealing with relationship with your spouse, but I would venture to say that's in relationship, period. That once you have an understanding of, what triggers you, what are some of the systems in me, what are some of the systems in you, that actually us as friends are going to do better.
wow.
Because I'm not going to I'm going to be purposeful about what
I see
my
hurts you or
garbage
whatever.
that's not you, that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And I see you, and I would never want to trigger you in that place.
Okay.
Right? Or
Yes.
I will preface if I'm triggering you. Listen, don't take this as rejection, don't take this, but I'm going to be really busy on Tuesday. Can we try to do it on Thursday?
Oh, got it. Yeah. So
Right.
if you could, I understand. Yeah.
I'm going to know that in you, and I'm going to try
Right.
to meet that place.
That's good.
I
That's
love how
good.
she rephrases intimacy.
Okay.
She calls it into me you see.
Oh,
I think that was actually
yeah.
from Bethel. What's his name?
Bill Johnson.
No,
Oh,
I thought it was Brene. Yeah.
so
doesn't matter.
okay. So
So
most
do-
people, they put up that shield because they don't want into me. You see, they put
Right.
up the.
We're
I'll
gonna
show you the mask I want. Okay, so yeah, talk to us about the books, and then we're gonna, as we wrap this up, I just want maybe a 30 to 60-second piece of advice you would give to unmarried people, and then maybe a 30 to 60 second piece of advice to married people, newlyweds, or like whatever. Some, you know what I mean? Just some takeaways that people, even if they can't make it or they're listening from out of town, that they can take and really kind of grasp to help them in their journey. But let's talk about your books real quick. Are these the three you have, or do you even have
We
more
have the
than this?
fourth one. So
The
we
fourth one,
have
okay.
this workbook course that's in marriage and premarital. And I would say that if you're a pastor out there, grab the premarital
Okay.
because I've done all your hard work for you. 40% of marriages can be saved
Wow.
if they do decent premarital. That's a big number,
40%. Yeah.
right?
Goodness.
So the reality is that, you know, when I come in for premarital counseling, I'm worried about my groomsmen and the colors of my wedding.
Right.
And if I'm going to use flowers or not, right? and not really worried about my actual, you know, do we get along? Because we're getting along great, right?
Oh, got it. Yeah.
And so what that premarital takes you through is some really hard background.
Okay.
You know, what are our families' backgrounds? You know, what are our own like physical, emotional, spiritual backgrounds?
Okay.
You know, what do I expect as far as chores? What do I expect as far as finances? You know, maybe even stepchildren. It takes you through that. You know, what is that
Wow.
going to look like to have a blended family? So really, and I say that's for pastors, but it's for the, you know, if you're helping prepare, you know, people for it's an amazing, easy resource because, you know, there's X amount of chapters in there, and then you can have them go do the online course
Yeah.
and come back into you and talk about communication.
That's
Where
good.
was I stuck? You know, what,
Okay.
you know, I'm sure you'll have, all pastors have great advice they can add, you
Yes.
know, to that. But all of them are very colorful. They have like
Yeah, it seems like a
true-
very
Their
easy to.
workbook.
true false tests that you can take to help you kind of
Wow.
walk through things.
So let's see here. I believe that people can. Most
How well do you
people
trust?
can be
That's what
trusted.
that one is.
I find it easy to trust those close to me. The people I've loved the most have been trustworthy. Those are good questions. I actually got into a conversation with a waitress, one of my favorite waitresses at a local restaurant. And somehow me and the guy that I was with, he's a friend of mine. He is also an author. We were talking about trust and how well do you trust people. And
Right.
so she gets involved. And then me and her ordered a book off Amazon about trust. And so we're both like, because really everybody has some sort of levels of, you know,
Right.
like trust, what creates trust, what, you know. So it's funny that that's the page that you turn to
Yeah.
because, Okay, and then we have Take Heart.
Take Heart is a little bit of it is the background of what happened to us,
Yeah.
you know,
The journey.
Okay.
the journey. So I'm not going to call it our testimony because it's more how we helped restore,
Oh, good. Oh, the details of your journey.
of what
Okay.
happened, you know.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then 12
And
habits.
the cool part is the title is out of John 16:33.
Yeah.
It's in this world you'll have struggle, but take heart, for I have
I've
overcome the world.
Yeah.
Our faith is not in our overcoming; it's in His already.
Yeah.
I love it.
So if you can get that on Amazon.
And it's the subtitle is Reclaiming Your Identity and Inheritance. Okay?
And this subtitle I did on this book, Your Roadmap to Overcome Daily Stresses and Messes.
Oh, that's good. All right, so the title
This is
is
12 Habits for a Sound Mind and Joyful Life.
nice. I kind of like the title.
Okay.
Because you know that one of my favorite verses is God hath not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.
Yeah.
And that's something that people really struggle with is a sound mind, something where they don't feel scattered and it's a sound mind, clear to make decisions. But it's not something that you hear about a lot.
Right.
a sound mind, and a joyful life. And everybody wants a joyful life,
Everybody
right?
wants joyful.
So 12 habits for a sound mind and joyful life. If somebody in your relationships or family, friends struggle with anxiety, being scattered, not being able to trauma. Yeah, this would be a good, I'm just going to guess that this would be a good book. I haven't read them yet. So
That would be an excellent book. That's
yeah.
what it was written for, is what's going on with the mental health crisis
that's what you were
right
talking
now. Yes.
Guys, these people are such a wealth of information. I hope you get connected in. Are you guys on social media as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so tell them how they could find you on social media, and then we're gonna wrap this thing up. They're gonna give you some advice, so don't go anywhere yet.
Yep, it's on the Family Collective. It's on. I can actually send you a little piece if you want to put it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's Instagram and Facebook at the Family
Perfect.
Collective.
Okay.
And here and Brazil, we have a huge following in Brazil.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I've been to Brazil. I
Yeah.
love
You
the people of
have?
Brazil.
So do
Yes,
we.
so friendly, so charismatic. I love
We'll
it.
be there next month.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be coming with you. No, I'm kidding.
Come
I'll
on.
interview you in Brazil.
Yes.
All right, so let's give them a piece of advice. But you know what? Actually, before I'm going to let them form, even though it doesn't look like they're having a hard time coming up with that. I do want to not forget to mention that we are at Touch Heaven Church in Canfield, Ohio right now, where we are in their chapel, which is over 100 years old.
Yes.
We keep talking about these old buildings. But this chapel has been over 100. It was the initial church, and then they've built on since then. And this is where Neil and Diane are going to be doing their marriage seminar, but they also meet several times throughout the week. So make sure you follow them as well. I just want to thank them for setting up this podcast and allowing us to meet here. Pastor Ralph and the whole team are amazing. Amen. So just shamelessly plugging them.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's get to this advice.
I will take the advice for individuals since we just wrote this book.
Okay.
What I came to understand dealing with, and when I say young adults, I'm talking about 11 to 40, 11 to 45, something in there. Definitely young for me, but they're struggling with who they are. Just who am I and what I'm called to do in this world. And it's literally, that book is about things that might be stopping them from getting that understanding.
Wow.
Am I struggling with fear? Am I struggling with shame? Am I struggling with rejection? Am I struggling, not being able to trust or let love in? Am I, whatever these, and those are the habits,
Yes.
where I'm dealing with, those maybe not healthy habits that might not be allowing you to know deep inside yourself who I am. Because every one of us was sent here for a purpose. And every one of us, has an identity. And we always call it in Christ, but I believe in all my heart, that's what it is.
Yeah. So can you look into the camera and give just a word to the young people out there that are listening?
That you absolutely have value. You absolutely were sent here for a purpose. You absolutely were called to do something amazing. I mean, it would blow my mind if I could hear from God and know exactly, why you're here. But to uncover that and to understand that may take some time and a little resilience, but it is so worth it. And it is so going to help if you're struggling, I get you're struggling with anxiety. The world is, an anxious place to be in right now, and I get that it can sometimes feel hopeless. But those are symptoms to not understanding the value that you have. So take some time to, get to the place to understand who you are, and you're going to walk in that sound mind and joyful life that you so desire.
That's beautiful. What a word of hope. Love it. All right. Now for married couples.
Oh, no. I thought Diane did a great job.
She did. But there's people watching who are married, who've been married a long time, just got married.
Yeah.
What would be, if you could send a broad message out to them, what would it be?
I think the thing that has resounded in my life is admit that we don't know. my greatest struggle is when I don't know that I don't know.
Right.
And
That never happens to me.
Right.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You know, I would say, I hope you don't have to get humility the way I did. There's a better way. But the reality is getting to a place where you can hear the voice of God, where you can hear the people close to you that can help you navigate. You know, there are a lot of things we encounter in this world that we're not necessarily set up to, but there's a path through it, because the Bible says we're not going to have challenges that He isn't going to give us a way through.
Oh. Do you think that you guys would have made it without a relationship with God?
No.
We probably just
under
got
no
divorced.
terms.
Wow.
No, it's the unshakable part that I tell people I never dreamt that I would need God's grace at the level I needed His grace. But it's also the important part of the gospel is not that He's there when I think I'm good.
Yeah.
The really important part of the gospel is that He's there for us at our worst.
That's good. That's good.
And I would just promise you that He isn't going to leave you.
Yeah. So can you look into the camera and give a message to the men who may be listening thinking, well, he doesn't know my wife, or
You're right.
Or-
I don't.
or, you know, okay, that's great that it worked for you, but you know, I don't think my marriage is going to make it. Like, what would you say? Just a quick message.
Yeah.
Totally putting you on the spot here.
No, the thing that I've learned, and Diane often shares it in conferences, is the sexiest thing you can do as a man is be the spiritual covering for your family. And God gave women the ability to feel that. And the reality is when you pray, when you spend time with God, I actually talk to God in short pieces, and He has downloaded so many things to me. It's one of the treasures of my life. But I would just say, become the spiritual covering. The reality is, as we do that, as we allow our heart to be tender, because as guys, our heart gets callous. My heart got callous. But allow the time that you spend with Christ to tenderize your heart and to really be a spiritual covering. And I promise you, things actually start to work a lot better. And your wife does notice. I think Diane says couples that pray together, the odds of divorce go from 1 in 2 to 1 in 1,540 some.
What?
Why don't you give them the facts?
Oops. It's about 1,400. It's over 1,400. But
Wow.
reality is, yes, you go from a 1 in 2 chance to 1 in 1,426.
Wow, you were close.
When
you were close. Wow.
Thank you for making me feel good.
But I want to say, but
amazing.
what I wasn't oohing about your number, because that's like you were close.
This is wrong.
No, it wasn't about that. It's when you actually pray together. I want people to hear, don't just show up at church together. Don't just do a devotional together. Don't just think you both are Christians. Pray together. That's totally different.
Wow.
I think
It's
that
becoming one.
I think there's a level of intimacy. That's what I was oohing about. I was like, make sure they understand what that means. Don't just,
Wow.
don't let's have Pastor Ralph pray and I'm holding your hand.
Right.
That's totally different than when we're actually communicating with
Wow,
God together.
that is good.
Yeah, if you want marriage insurance, it's right there.
Right there.
Man, what a quote to end on. Marriage insurance equals prayer together. That's amazing. You guys, I feel like I have learned so much, and I look forward to the relationship conference that is happening this weekend, starting tomorrow. I can't believe it already. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's free. You guys could just come. Register if you can on the website, touchheaven.com. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. And basically, get here, and anytime you can to learn what you can, definitely visit them at thefamilycollective.co.
well done.
I got it. And thanks again to Touch Heaven Church, who allowed us to do this podcast here in their chapel. The Cat in Columbiana, it's a Columbiana Arts Theater, and then the Gallagher and the Varsity Club of Youngstown in downtown Youngstown. You guys are amazing. Everybody who sat here and watched this or listened to this, thank you so much. You guys are the best part of what makes Youngstown click. You guys are so valued, so important, and it's such a necessary part of this entire region. So don't forget that your gift, your smile, your personality, everything that you are is so needed in this region to make us all better. Never forget it. I'll talk to you later.